I was working on the community products at Figma from this lens of like user growth and user acquisition.
What was the outcome of the new design? Like, how did it help Figma?
Yeah, so when we actually ran an A/B test with this, we did see an increase in signups, which was good for our business.
So what was that first design iteration that you attempted?
So I had this idea of what if we can enable resource creators to basically build this little landing page for their files, right? Library creators, they will want to have this color grid on their landing page. Maybe we can have these fancy little mode switchers that you can drag back and forth.
Howdy and welcome to Deep Dive. This is your host, Jay. I am stoked because you got for us a growth design project to walk through. Can you tell us more about what this project was about?
Yeah, sure. I was working on the community products at Figma, which fell under this larger growth pillar that we had. So for those of you who are not super familiar with what Figma Community is, it's essentially this place where you can, as a creator, you can upload or publish things like files, or now you can also publish slides or like FigJam files to Figma Community for anybody else who's using Figma to use it inside of their own files. So this is a way to share things like libraries, assets, all of that good stuff. And it fell under this growth pillar because we saw it as a really valuable way to not only let people create and share resources within Figma, but also for people to find Figma. So for example, if I search for icon packs or material design library in Google, I should land on a Figma community resource. And from here, I can essentially click to use this resource in Figma to start designing with it. And that's like a very powerful acquisition channel. So I was working on community from this lens of like user growth and user acquisition. And we wanted to redesign what we had as basically like the front door, right, of community, which are these like individual resource pages. This is where I think over 90% of our traffic went to. And to redesign this to make the resources much more enticing for people to use, easier to understand, all of that good stuff.
Wow. So what did the design look like before?
Yeah, so you're looking at it right here. So this is what a community file. So if you publish a file to community, this is what it will look like. You have this embed of the file at the top. It's very cool where you can zoom in. It's basically like a canvas view. You can select different pages, visit the entire file is just open to you. You have all of these like meta information, all of the details or the description that the creator puts in themselves. And as the consumer, you can actually click on this to open this with Figma. So if you're a logged out user, this is where we will serve you that sign up modal where you have to create a Figma account. And if you're logged in, we will basically just open this file inside of your Figma editor.
Wow. And then let's look at the new design.
Ta-da! So this is a new design that we ended up with. I think some immediate differences you'll notice is that we changed basically what this area looked like above the fold. We moved away from this embed to this more curated carousel that as the creator of this resource, you can customize. So we still put this embed lower down on the page because one thing that we really wanted to prevent was creators who might put like very snazzy looking images that actually had nothing to do with the file and what's inside.
Gaming the system.
Yeah, like we just wanted to provide transparency and like prevent catfishing.
Oh my God, I love that
was the goal.
To be very honest, I do miss the old design. Maybe because I'm just used to it. But
yeah.
What was the outcome of the new design? Like, how did it help Figma?
Yeah, so when we actually ran an A/B test with this, we did see an increase in signups, which was good for our business. And we also saw an increase in existing users actually clicking through and using community resources. So whatever it was, it like helped people understand what's inside of this resource better, made them like more incentivized to actually try it out.
Oh my God. That's so awesome. So what was that first design iteration that you attempted when you started working on this project?
Yeah, so I can take us back time.
Oh, how long was this project, by the way?
Okay, so this project was super long. It spanned all the way from April all the way to September. So that was like 5 months of designing and building. And I can walk through what were like all the nuances and details and all the work that we had to do. But this was like, I would say this was like a Excel effort. So this was one of my earliest design crits where this was essentially the prompt that we had was just like, okay, go improve this page, right? We have this page that gets so much traffic. We think it could be converting better. Think about all the different ways that you can make this higher converting better, blah, 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 blah. So I had this idea of what if we can enable resource creators to basically build this little landing page for their files, right? So I publish a file. We built some skeleton version of this resource page for them. And then they can go in and add these little sections with templated layout. For example, they can have this 2-column where in the left, they can take a little snippet of their design file and then write a little description on the right to essentially build out this like landing page however they want. So it could have like multiple sections. This is like for a file. For a design library, maybe they can have this icon grid where you can like copy individual icons and paste it into your file. Super customizable. You can imagine library creators like Joey, they will want to have this color grid on their landing page. Maybe we can have these fancy little mode switchers that you can drag back and forth. Super pie in the sky idea, very customizable. And then the second direction that I thought about was like, okay, let's just give people this template for them to fill out in this guided handheld approach. You can see how like Airbnb and Framer, these were inspirations where they had this very consistent layout between all of their different listings or templates. And as a creator, you basically just have to fill it out. So in this version, I started from the publishing flow again, where we ask people to like, hey, give your resource a title, drag in a bunch of different images. So this was like just design exploration without any like user research. These were just my ideas, what I thought would be cool, essentially. And at the meantime, like while this is going on, we were actually conducting some user research on understanding what is and what isn't working with our current design of the resource page. So this was a design crit where I shared out some of the research findings. So here, what we realized was there's just like some very obvious usability hiccups that we saw with this. So the main thing was this embed was actually just very confusing for our users, right? So you land on this page, this embed loads in. I think this is like a better example where you can still read that this says like Material 3 Design Kit, but with a really large file, you have all these itty bitty thumbnails. People don't know how to zoom in on this thing. They try to scroll down the page with their trackpad, and then they actually just get scroll trapped in this area and pan away all of the content in here. It was just a lot of confusion. Oh, wow, what just happened, right? And it was very difficult for people to understand what are the things, or I guess the most important bits to take away from what's inside of this file. So after learning that, we were like, okay, we just have to focus a little bit more and figure out what is the best way to communicate the value of a resource the second that a user lands on this page without interacting with it, without scrolling down. So this is the part where, again, like our hypothesis got narrowed down a lot more, where we were like, okay, if resources are just easier to evaluate when a user lands on this page, more people will understand them, want to use them and sign up. So this is where I really scoped down my explorations. Here we're essentially just looking at this area above the fold, right? How can we communicate to people better that what you're looking at is a file or a prototype or a FigJam widget, we have this image carousel on the right that you can look at different snippets from the file with. This would be completely like creator controlled with this like very big CTA. One thing that, I mean, this was like one of my hypotheses, but I just felt like by tucking the CTA up to the top right, it was a little bit undiscoverable, especially for people who are like new to Figma. So this was one of the first iterations. We thought about putting this resource type indicator in here, explored a bunch of things with what could this hero visual look like. It could be this file embed if it's very simple. It can be this carousel if people want to highlight different parts in their file. If you're publishing a prototype, we should still reserve this functionality of being able to interact with this prototype. So yeah, lots of like hero visual explorations here. What if we supported videos to better support plugin creators? So this was one of the earlier iterations.
Oh, I see. You even have those check marks, the trusted, you have those indications like trusted extension, in-app payments. I like those like subtle information that you have there.
Oh, yeah. So this is one of the things that we unfortunately weren't able to really get to, is working on this area below the fold. But these are actually on our resource pages today. So in this design, basically, my thinking was that, like when people are using plugins, those things are probably really important. Can we make them more front and center? So this was one of the earlier iterations on this hero design. Again, I ran a design crit where people just left a bunch of files, a bunch of comments. And then in one of the later iterations, so this like file and CTA lockup is something that we iterated a lot on.
Love this. What did you explore in the different CTAs? I'm curious to see like the different types of CTAs, which one you preferred.
So this is like a system that just needed to fit a lot of stuff and like a lot of different permutations of data in. So for example, there is like the resource type, right? Whether it's a file, a prototype, a plugin, you have to consider what Figma partners look like. We had ratings at one point, which we also had to fit in. We wanted to show how many users actually use this resource to give us some like social, oh my gosh, what is a word I'm looking for?
Social proof.
Social proof. Yes, thank you. And we wanted to also have the system of the CTA color mapping to the type of resource that it is. So this is just showing a bunch of, you have to consider multiple creators, like different lengths of titles, for example. And we had monetization as well. So being able to fit in things like a secondary button to preview it before you buy, also like the subscription value or the purchase value. So all of these things needed to exist within.
Damn, that's a super long name.
Yeah, so I had to like design the system that like fit all of this in here. And let's see, in one of the later iterations, you'll see that we actually changed what this looked like to, this little thing got moved out of place, to something that is more creator centric. So having the creator of the resource at the top instead of having that indicator of what type of resource it is being like in this eyebrow space. That was like a trade-off that we had to make. I think a lot of people really liked this version where it's really obvious what type of resource you're looking at. But I think at the end of the day, we do want community to feel social and people first. So there was no data backing this. This was just like, principally, we wanted to make this trade-off and we were okay with it. So we basically chose to feature the avatar and the name of the creator and then demoted the type of resource it is into this bulleted metadata line.
I like this because, for example, I know Joey, so I'm more likely to click on it. I've used Jitter. I love it, the tool. So I'm more likely to click on it, regardless of what the resource is, because I know who those creators are. And then I also see that you've simplified the secondary actions by using icons more. Like I see the primary action, which is open in Figma, but then the rest of the actions are just icons, whether it's like saving or just liking the resource.
Yeah, I think this is because this is a logged out version where we just hid all of the secondary buttons. And in this iteration, I wanted to also illustrate what the logged in view looked like. And I just thought that the like button and the save button be feel like self-explanatory enough to just have them as icons.
Question. Why not
Mhm.
just have one button? So instead of like and save separate ones, why not just have one button where people just like a resource and they use that as a reference for referencing whatever they liked us instead of having like and
Yeah.
save separate?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is you're like getting into how the sausage is made. Um, but essentially what happened, and this kind of predates me a little bit on this project. I joined Community after. This might be a very vague explanation, but we introduced ratings at some point and took away likes as a part of that behavior. But we always had save as this option where you can save a plugin and that would get added to your list of plugins in your Figma editor. So you can access it from that list. And we just also wanted to add that to design files as well as a way to bookmark it so you can come back to it and use it as a resource. Whereas the like action is more to just show your support to the creator and be like, kudos, I like this. So at some point we introduced ratings and then we took ratings back for very good reasons. There's like a whole blog post on this if you want to look into it. And so I came in the middle of that change, which is why in some of the earlier mocks you see ratings. And then at this point, we brought back likes because they do serve two different purposes, right? One is I want to collect this resource to use it in my own designs. And then that is more of like a social signal. I like this. So this point, we're really narrowing down what this hero section could look like, where you have these image carousels. So at this point, we were like, okay, if we want to build this end to end, both on the publishing end, so allowing people to like put this carousel together and also work on the presentation layer across like design files, FigJam files, prototypes, like all of these different resources, that would be a super long project. Lots of dev resources would be needed. And we really wanted to get more confidence in this design direction before going 100% and building this out end to end. So what we did was something that was very unscalable, where we actually, I partnered with Bryce, our amazing data scientist. We like looked at the top 100, I think it was 100 files and plugins, looked at all of the traffic that they were getting. And basically, Bryce did this power analysis of, okay, if we look at our most popular files and plugins, how many of them will we need to run this new design on as a test to actually detect any statistically significant change to sign up rate and sign up behavior? And I think that he came back with some number that was like very reasonable. So we were like, okay, we're just going to reach out to all of these resource creators, whether it was like files or plugins, and just be like, hey, can you like upload 10 videos or images in this format? And we built these pages, uploaded these assets to these pages. I ran a logged out A/B test with it. I can show you the spreadsheet. So these are basically all of yes, it was super reasonable, 42. 42 plugin creators. These were all of the videos that they gave us. Like this was like from a Google form. And like the designer, the PM, the engineers, like everyone just used this internal tool to update all of these assets into like our database. And we were able to build just a presentation or like the consumption view of this new page with all of these like hand submitted and hand uploaded assets. So one of the best things about working at Figma, especially on Community, is just like everyone is so kind and generous, and like our users and community creators like are so happy to work with us. When we like did the creator reach out, we attached this like before and after comparison of what this new layout will look like, and people were just like so excited about it. And it was good times, even though there was a lot of manual labor involved. But this really did allow us to run this test in a month instead of building this end-to-end flow that would have taken multiple months, and to give us like more confidence in this design direction.
So rather than building out the new design, you just took all these videos and resources these 100 top creators provided and manually just uploaded them on your end, and just did that A/B test. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So the shortcut that we took was basically we didn't need to build out this publishing flow. I only needed to build out this consumption view.
Wow. Okay. I see. That makes
Yeah.
sense. I'm guessing the Bryce ran the data experiment on this and it was a success.
Yeah, thankfully. It was a success. So we're like, okay, cool, awesome. Let's like go ahead and build out this like publishing flow. So all creators can now put together this like new layout themselves without relying on a Figma employee to upload their assets into our internal tool. Yeah, from here on out, a lot of these creates were about publishing. We had this accordion modal in the past. The idea was like, where should we put this like control to upload this gallery? I think in this design also had, some more like WYSIWYG explorations where maybe like on the page itself, you can have controls to upload and delete carousel images. We ultimately ended on something that was a little bit smaller scoped and closer to this like publishing model, which I think it's, if you like try to go into the publishing, I'm not an admin. If you try to publish a file today, this is closer to the final version that we shipped. And then after some more iterations, we like really had to nail down like the very nitty gritty like interactions on this like carousel uploading flow. Like what does drag and drop look like? What does like reordering images look like? From here on out, it was like much more straightforward because we had more confidence in just like the overall direction of this redesign. And yeah, that's how we ended up at where we are today.
This is insane. I'm just thinking through stuff in my mind, the questions. I'm thinking, does it make sense to go through any of the specific interactions? Because you said we had to figure out the drag and drop interaction. What does it look like? The reorder. So I'm just wondering if there's any insight or it's pretty straightforward. If it's pretty straightforward, maybe we don't focus on it too much. But if there was something specific you had to do in any one of those interactions.
From the design side, not really. I think, when we were working on the publishing side on this like little carousel builder, Genji is the engineer who worked on this. And we were just constantly slacking each other back and forth because I feel like with this design in particular, you might look at this and be like, oh yeah, the spec is pretty detailed. But honestly, like all of the edge cases, what happens when I'm almost at the limit and then I drag in 5 more files, right? Like all of those things, I don't think, and this might be a lukewarm take, but I feel like as a designer, you should have a good relationship with your engineer where you can paint out maybe like 80% of a flow and have the engineer fill out the last 20% with you together. Because I think at some point it really reaches like diminishing returns for me to write out all of these things and mock them up on the canvas.
Why?
Because it's faster to just talk to your engineer and have them like screen share while you like fine tune things, right? Or just talk about things in words like, oh, in this scenario, if they upload, I don't know, these like file formats that are disallowed, like this is how we should show the error message. And I think there is definitely benefit to the documentation aspect of it. But when you're just trying to like ship things fast, I do think it's almost more productive and faster to have the designer and the engineer work on that 20% together. Whether I think at Figma, we have this thing called a front-end commit preview, I want to say. But basically what like your engineer can do is to send you this link that allows you to preview a PR in the product and play around with it and give them feedback before it actually makes its way to staging. And that's so helpful.
So it's like a beta environment.
Yeah, it's like a beta before a beta. Before the pull request even makes it to staging, we can preview what it looks like on our machine by just clicking on a link. It's such a game changer. Yeah. So either through Zoom or Slack huddles or just like ping these like links back and forth, I can like very easily test things out and write these like notes to my engineers. I'm like, oh, this is like the thing that we should tweak. Or maybe during the process of development, they figure out, some edge case that I just didn't consider. And I would just be able to describe to them like, oh, this is the behavior that should happen. And I think, as a designer, you should always try to be thorough and capture as many edge cases as you can. But I think it's totally okay to do that last 10-20% together.
Makes sense. Wow. That was an amazing insight. I didn't know that.
Wait, which part?
Just the fact that you get access to that beta link even before the beta. That was really, and that too with one click.
And for this project, this piece of it was very interaction heavy, but now I work on FigJam and it's all interaction details. So I was working with Shreya, one of our amazing interns, this summer on a bunch of connector updates. And it's so nuanced and it's so interactive that it's almost impossible to describe. I guess if you're a really strong prototyper as a designer, you can prototype it yourself in code. But the way that she and I worked, for example, we were like finessing all of these hover zones on a shape, as you like dock a connector to it. So should this thing scale with zoom in and zoom out levels, right? Should like the padding be a little bit different when you're like hovering near a vertex? Like it's so tactile and you really need to feel it out inside of the canvas to make a decision. So we basically just worked on all of those fine tuning of the hover zones in code where I'd be like, I think it should be a little bit less sensitive at the vertices. And she will make that change, send me this link. I will be able to play around with it. And that, like, so much of that final mile of polish and finessing happens when you're in that development stage.
Hey folks, this is Jay. It means the world to me that you watched this video. Let me know in the comments what topics you want me to cover in the future, and I will see you in the next deep dive.